Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is the segment on my channel where I go back through A24's entire catalog from the first film that they released all the way till whenever I get current. And I'm really excited to be back on the A24 Archive grind. I've watched a few movies recently because in October I took a little break to do mostly horror content, but I've had a lot of fun with this, and the reason why is because there's a lot of films in A24's catalog that I've either heard talked about a lot or never heard of before, and so I'm always excited to jump in and watch something. And this is a film that I heard quite a bit about when it was first released, but never got an opportunity to check out. And this is from director Ben Wheatley, who I've seen one other film that he has made, which is the film Kill List. I released that review a while back, and I was not the biggest fan of that movie. I don't think that it's awful by any means. I just felt like the pacing was relatively bad, and a lot of people think that it's this excellent slow burn horror, but there was not enough substance for me, even in the visual cues, to really create all that interesting of a story. I felt like the dialogue was a little repetitive, and despite the third act blow up being really great, it just wasn't enough of a film for me to really call it anything more than okay. And so I wasn't super excited to get into this movie because I didn't like his other film previously, but I'm always optimistic that a director can turn it around. I think about the way I was not the biggest fan of Gaspar Noé's Climax when I watched it. I respected it visually, thought that it was really well edited, but as far as substance-wise, I didn't really care all that much. And then later on, I went to watch his film Vortex, and I absolutely adored it. It was one of my favorite films of that year. So I always hope directors can turn it around for me, and I was hoping that would be the case with this film today. And the movie I'm going to be discussing is Free Fire. Free Fire is directed by Ben Wheatley, a crime drama set in 1970s Boston about a gun sale which goes horribly wrong. So I was very excited to watch this despite the director because Cillian Murphy's in this movie. I love Cillian Murphy. He's a phenomenal actor. Brie Larson is in this. There's a ton of talent stacked in this film, and I was very excited to watch this movie, and I hated this movie. I did not enjoy it at all. I liked it significantly less than Kill List. I felt like this was more of an idea for a 15-minute short film than something that tried to pad an hour and a half runtime. And I'll talk about it a little bit more when I break the whole film down. So at the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to this wide array of characters. They're all coming together to do this gun sale, and they go inside of this warehouse, and some tension is building at the beginning because two of the men who are a part of the gun sale, one of the men who is selling the guns and one of the men who is purchasing the guns, saw each other the night before and got into an altercation over something that had occurred, and that creates tension where one of them fires a gun at the other one, and then it causes the entire room to go into chaos, and the entire hour and a half runtime of the film is trying to figure out how they're going to resolve this issue because people are all pinned to the ground and they're shooting each other, and essentially it's just an hour and a half film with people shooting at one another and yelling dialogue at each other. So like I said, I really did not like this movie at all, and I feel like the reason is it's not a fully formed idea. It feels just like an idea that someone would have for a segment in a movie where you've already written really great characters. It's hard to compare it to Tarantino because Tarantino does such a phenomenal job even with so little at developing a character. I mean, even in his most simplistic ideas, you don't have to have an immense amount of exposition to build his characters because his dialogue is so witty. But at the beginning of this movie, all I was thinking was Tarantino. Was like, this is a director who is trying to mimic someone who has perfected this style. And you get this kind of quippy back and forth, some really irritating dialogue in the early parts of the film. I didn't find any of these characters particularly likable or even like dislikable in a way that was entertaining to watch. And it's just like this quippy, dated banter back and forth about this gun sale. And when they get inside and they start firing at each other, the situation that had conspired between the two people is so uninteresting and dumb that when they start shooting at each other, you're like, okay. But I was hoping that when the violence started, that I would be, engaged, because when it comes to action films, even if action films are poorly written, there's an ability for engagement and entertainment through the action sequences. But the action in this is so horrible terrible because the cinematographer working with the director have no idea how to establish space. For those of you out there who don't know, when you're a cinematographer, when you're designing shot selections, there's something called establishing a space. That's letting the person watching your film know what a room looks like, so that if you cut to a different part of the room, the person watching the film knows, I've seen that part of the room before. I know where that is. So that way you can kind of understand where characters are placed in a scene and reference that. We've never been in that room before. We don't know what it looks like. The filmmakers drop you into this space and have people shooting at each other without any concept where people are located in the frame. So it's just random bullets flying at each other to where you don't know who's the one shooting at who. There's a couple of moments where the cinematographer will close in on a person and you'll see them fire shots and it'll cut to the expression of a different character's face. But mostly it's so chaotic, there's no real ability to see who's going after who and why. There's this like chase sequence that happens during the film where someone runs into this room. Brie Larson's character's running away from this guy, and it's like, okay, where the hell is this? Where are they at in this part of the building compared to the other characters? Is the threat still looming? And because of that uncertainty in the establishment of the space, there is no real tension involved. It's very difficult to stay invested in something when you have no idea what's going on. And that's what really irritated me the most about this movie, is if the entire array of stakes that is being set up for the audience is supposed to weigh on this gun battle, not knowing where anyone is doesn't really help. And then also having really unlikable characters deliver really bland dialogue does not aid to the cause either. It just was grating and irritating in the worst way possible. My favorite moments in the film were the ones that Cillian Murphy were in, and his character honestly doesn't do a whole lot for the movie. Brie Larson does a fine job. There's a couple other performances in the movie that were okay. I found most of the characters really grating. I felt like they were trying to be so many films that already exist that have done this formula significantly better, and it just felt kind of like a nothing movie. And I've said this before in my reviews, when a film makes it feel like I have wasted my time, that's when I get the most irritated, and this film made me feel like I completely wasted my time. And by the time it was over, I was so irritated. I just had nothing positive to say. Aside from a couple of moments that I enjoyed in the action sequences and a couple of okay performances, this movie is incredibly forgetful, and there is really no reason to watch it whatsoever. So have you seen Free Fire? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was bad. It's not in the very bottom tier of A24's catalog, but I would never revisit this movie again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.